Okay, I'm conscious of the clock. We've got 10 minutes, so I want to get through this. We're going to be talking about entrepreneurship as an asset with two of perhaps the leading voices in this space. On my left, a man who doesn't need much introduction, the CEO of General Atlantic, one of the largest PE firms in the world. And then Michael to his left, who is the CEO of Property Finder, which is one of the fastest growing companies in this region. So it's a marriage of the two, so to speak, a partnership, which lends itself nicely to the theme of our panel today. Bill, let me just start off with you. You think about a PE firm, but then also entrepreneurship. How did a company and a firm like General Atlantic find itself looking at opportunities at such a grassroots level?
Well, we've been investing in entrepreneurial growth companies for over 40 years, and we've been doing it all over the world. India, China, Southeast Asia, Latin America, and of course the US and Europe. But we've been very excited to expand our presence here in the Middle East and begin trying to identify entrepreneurial growth companies here. We're very fortunate to be investors in Michael's company, Property Finder. But for me, Property Finder is a great example of a world-class entrepreneurial company that is really capitalizing on the growth and economic dynamism of the region. And it's why we want to be here, because we think there'll be more of those opportunities.
Has the mission of the company, of the fund, evolved since the early days in terms of which part of the cycle you're looking to invest in?
We've always been focused on growth equity and trying to identify companies that are just past the venture capital stage and really trying to scale up. What we've done was, our start was in technology investing just in the US, and we've actually globalized that by saying we see entrepreneurs all over the world who are capitalizing on opportunities, and we still see a lot of opportunity in technology, but also in healthcare and consumer markets.
Michael, I'm sure many people here would love to hear the story of how you came up with the idea of Property Finder. You and I were just speaking now, but behind the scenes, and you're telling me that you weren't from the region, you aren't from the region, but you identified an opportunity in the region. So just give us a sense of the story behind the company.
Sure. So I came for the first time in the UAE in 2004. I grew up in a small city called Geneva in Switzerland. And my uncle had won a construction project to do the piling of the Palm Island. So when I came here, he took me on the middle of the Palm Island and told me, look, there's going to be houses here in the middle of the ocean. And I said, wow, that sounds absolutely crazy. We don't have these kind of projects in Europe. And I did a little bit of research on where were all these properties going to be resold and rented out. And nobody was really focusing on that part, on the advertising of the real estate market. And I experienced myself a pretty painful moment when I was trying myself to rent an apartment, and I had to go through a classified newspaper. I think we all remember, or those that are old enough remember how unfriendly is a user experience of a paper classified. And so that's when I said, well, there's got to be a better way to organize the information, and let's start Property Finder.
Which year was that?
So 2005, we started in the print. So because internet penetration was below 40%, so we just couldn't rely fully online. We knew that we were going to end up as being a portal, an online portal, but we had to start with print and competing against the major newspaper, which was Gulf News.
Yeah, so you've been through many cycles over here in Dubai, of course, and the UAE, many booms and busts, as we were speaking about in the real estate market. But when you were thinking about your next leg of growth, what sort of characteristics were you looking for in a partnership?
In a partnership? There's a couple of things that we look at when you try to raise capital. First of all, you want a partner that understands your sector. Classified is quite a particular sector, and General Atlantic have invested in a lot of classified business across the globe. You want a partner that also has appetite for the region, and Bill has been coming to the region for many, many years and has been a big believer in what is happening here way before what we are today. And then two things I think that really kind of distinguishes General Atlantic from other investors of what they really brought to Property Finder is, one is a great reputation. And when you're building a company, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for an external validation of what you're doing. So you want somebody that has a great name and a great reputation, and that enables you to attract talent. And then second, I lost my thought.
That's a good enough reason. If you remember, we can come back to it. But let me just put the question to you, Bill. When you're looking at companies to invest in, what are the characteristics that draw you in?
Well, Well, it always starts with a great entrepreneur like Michael, and we have a mutual admiration society here because we were very fortunate to be investors in Property Finder and finding a great entrepreneur like Michael. But we like to talk about three things that we look for in a growth equity investment: market, model, and management. So the three M's. And first, is it a good market and a growing market? And clearly, the Middle East was growing, Dubai was growing, so we saw a terrific market opportunity. Second, business model. We really understood that the classified business model could be one that generates lots of recurring revenue and high profit margins over time once it reached scale. So we really liked the business model, and we had an exceptional leader in Michael or management. The final M, and Michael's done a wonderful job building out his management team over the years as he scaled the company.
Yeah, and of course you've been involved in the company since 2018 as well.
Yes.
So I guess it comes back to what you were just saying about the company, Michael himself, but the draw to get involved back then was both the person, the company, the business model, and the growth opportunities that the region offered.
I think we were fortunate that we saw that the region had tremendous potential to grow, and that great and then human capital was developing, and it was people coming to the region to build businesses. It was talent who might from the region who might have been educated abroad, choosing to come back and start companies, and those were the telltale signs for us that something special was beginning to happen in the Middle East, and I'm happy to say it's continued to play out from there.
Yeah. Michael, capital is often the way to keep your business growing, and yet capital is increasingly difficult to come by, especially in a higher interest rate environment. Is it an impediment that to further push forward with growth plans, companies tend to be so reliant on the ability to attract further capital?
It's a great question. I think a lot of entrepreneurs mistakenly believe that success is about raising capital. Yes, it is important to raise capital, and at some point you are going to need that firepower in order to scale. But I would encourage entrepreneurs to focus a lot more on product market fit and growing profitably. I think right now the name of the game is growing a profitable business. We've seen that the growth at all costs is not something that public investors reward well anymore. And so growing financially and profitably is absolutely important.
Yeah. And from your perspective, Bill, as well, I mean, how do you think about the allocation of capital in such an environment where, again, there's more competition and perhaps everyone chasing the few real opportunities that exist out there?
It's a competitive market. For the great companies like Property Finder, it's always going to be competition. But I think what we've learned is that if you can really demonstrate your ability to add value to the company and add value to the company building process that Michael's been working hard at for over a decade, that you can differentiate yourself and distinguish yourself from just being a provider of money. So to us, that company building capability, that value add, is the source of our investment alpha, and really why we hopefully are selected by the higher quality entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I think what GA has, and what I wanted to say earlier that came back to my mind, is one of the key attributes of General Atlantic is that they are known to be founder friendly. And in this space of private equity, it's not a given, right? You have a little bit more aggressive investors. And what you want as a founder is somebody that is going to be respectful of your vision and respectful of your own timing. And I can only say great things about our partnership over the last 5 years until today, even as most private equity would be looking to exit. General Atlantic is doing that in such a grace way. And that dialogue is really, really helpful. And I think that's what entrepreneurs who have great company and have the choice to choose which investor they're going to go with, this is something that's going to matter.
It's a really interesting point you raise about the sort of longevity of the partnership, because if you look at the region, many of the plans that are put in place are long-term visions. These are long-term plans that are going to take time to play out. You talk about the diversification drives. This isn't going to happen overnight. So from your perspective, Bill, how important is it also to have that sort of understanding that, look, patience is required at a partnership level?
I think it's especially true here in this region that you have to have the staying power and the long-term perspective to basically think about a 5 to 8 year, if not longer, holding period.
Yeah.
When you're in markets that are developing like the Middle East, again, it's not a 1, 2, or 3-year investment, and company building takes time. These markets unfold differently, and I think it's been helpful to us that we've got investors who understand that we want to be long duration investors, and then if it takes Michael longer to build the business with quality, I love the way he talked about profitable growth versus growth at all costs. That again, that can take more time.
Yeah. Michael, I thought it was interesting. You said when you founded the company in 2005, there was very limited internet access. That makes me feel like a dinosaur because I remember those days quite well.
Yeah.
But if you look at where we are today, where do you see the latest frontiers for disruption? And not just specifically to Property Finder, but just in the ecosystem. Okay. I'm guessing you're going to say artificial intelligence, but I'll let you say it.
No, look, I'm focused on consumer tech businesses, right? And I think artificial intelligence comes in those consumer tech to enhance them and make them more profitable. I don't think about AI as technology that you sell in itself. But what I see in the region is very exciting. I mean, we have one of the youngest regions. If you look at the demographic in the pyramids, the demographic are absolutely exciting. And what is ahead of us for the next decade, we were discussing this backstage. I mean, the next 10 to 20 years in this part of the world is going to be phenomenal. So any entrepreneur that has an idea that can enhance the day-to-day life of consumers out there should come here and build a business, because the framework is there, the demand is there, the stability is here. And it's been a great journey.
Just picking up on what Michael said, I think people don't fully appreciate how fast the region is growing outside of the energy economy. And while it might be posting a 4% growth rate going forward, if you take out energy, you're looking at GDP per capita probably growing by 50% in the next 5 to 7 years, $1 trillion of additional GDP. That's pretty darn exciting. And you combine that with, as Michael pointed out, a very young demographic. Looks a lot like India. People talk about India having a great demographic, but it's the same here. That combination of young demographic, high GDP growth per capita outside of energy, and very high digital penetration. 80–90% of the people have smartphones. So it's a very digitally enabled society. All that together really is a terrific recipe for entrepreneurship, new companies, and economic dynamism.
Michael, final question to you, given your success story, and long may it continue for you. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs in the room, anyone who's watching this panel, about their own prospective growth journey?
I always advise entrepreneurs to ensure that what they're working on is really something that they do out of passion, because the journey is likely to be a lot longer than what they plan. I didn't think that I would still be running Property Finder 20 years later. I didn't think the company would still exist probably that long. And it's probably going to be here for a while. And so you got to be really passionate about what you do, and I think that applies to any job.
I think it applies to everything. Love what you do. That's the takeaway from our panel. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much.